Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. This is Grant from State of the Spark. It is a Wednesday, and I am super excited. At least when we first recorded this, it's a Wednesday. I'm super excited for my day. I love weather like today, and we're in Florida, and we're seeing a ton of nasty little weather out there. But I'm excited because I want to talk about communication today, and I think communication is supremely important, and I'm watching communication fall apart for people. I'm watching, especially post-COVID. We've been observing that since people have been using their phones. I love the phone. I love communication. I know that communication has evolved, and evolution is fine. But I want to call out areas where I believe de-evolution or entropy of communication is happening. So I'm going to cover 4 quick tips that you could take away today and act on in order to improve your communication. This act right here, this inflection, this tone, this volume, there are different ways to communicate. Smiling are different ways to communicate. There's sequences and inflection. I've trained Fortune 500 companies on this. I trained Liberty Tax on inflection at one point. We love communication, and I think that this is the critical skill. And I will say this. For leadership in the accelerated marketplace, when robots come, when we hit basically the technological asymptote and you don't have to work and food is being 3D printed and homes are being provided, what's going to matter? The high technical skills, and on the opposite end of the spectrum, the high people skills. And I want to make sure that I'm constantly relaying this to you guys, that we can all be communicating much better for a much more thriving existence. We are just simply, and communication is this, hear me on this. If humans are the neurons of the human species, communications are the synapses, the neural connections between synaptics that actually facilitate the flow. So you could be a neuron, but if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know how to connect with other neurons, you're kind of going to die off, and the body actually consumes this in autophagy. Another 3 to autophagy. $4 word for you today. But before all that, we obviously want to cover a lovely cup of gratitude. What are you grateful for? What am I grateful for? Even if no one sees this the rest of the day, I took a moment for gratitude and to share my energy with the world and to share what I'm passionate about. And you should do the same. You should tell people what you have gratitude for. Today, what I am grateful for is a powerful set of friends. So you are, if the human species is a brain and you are a neuron, you being surrounded by other strong neurons makes your ideas powerful. It makes your ideas fast. I had a lovely coffee with a great friend, James Joseph. He's fantastic people. I've tagged him this morning. If you don't know James and you don't know Dory, you should. And just sitting with him was so refreshing because I often sit with dead neural synaptic pathways. And that's not a dig at people. It's just people who aren't always thinking creatively. Me and Marissa played chess before we watched West Wing last night. I love the fact that me and my awesome wife can play chess in something complicated, and she's a real challenging person to play chess against. I love the fact that I am surrounded by a network, a synaptic connection with so many powerful, awesome people. And what's further, yesterday I was really stirred to come out of the COVID fog. And I hope that you come out of the COVID fog super strong. And in order to do that yesterday, I took about 25 minutes. That was it. 25 minutes after my morning huddle with the team. After 25 minutes, I got on the phone and literally just dialed the 5 most influential people I knew. And in that amount of time, I reached about 3 of them. I booked a TEDx speaker. We're going to have a TEDx speaker interview on the show. That's going to be fantastic. We're going to meet with him next week. I met with a friend up in Indianapolis by phone, and he's like, you've got to meet this networking group. Are you still in Colorado? I said, no, I'm back in Florida. He said, man, you got to connect with this friend of mine, and he's doing all these things nationwide. And I told him about the show and doing interviews. He was super pumped. And then I connected with just clients and just heard from clients. So it increases your sense of confidence to connect like a neuron, to connect to other synaptic connections. It increases your sense of confidence. It increases your sense of economic security. Economic security is directly correlated to the number of connections and synaptic connections, but human connections you have that are thriving, that are engaging, that are positive-minded. We're around enough negative people today. call your positive people. That's what I'm grateful for, is that I have curated a network of people that I could call and just get filled up. I talked to another one yesterday afternoon, Derek Smith, great friend. He and his family are doing road school, and they're taking their kids all over the country in this COVID crazy schooling world. They took their two lovely kids just to see our awesome country, and they got their passports to see the world. I want to be surrounded by more and more and more and more people like that. So that's what I did. That's what I'm grateful for. I'm grateful for powerful, positive friends, healthy, happy relationships. That's step 2 in the TLE. That's what I'm grateful for this morning. Let's cover other news. In other news, Alphabet. They're trying to get us to call Google Alphabet. Technically, Google's parent company is Alphabet. I'm not going to call them Alphabet. They're Google, and they'll always be Google until they change their name back to Google, as I will require. Google is bringing wireless internet over light to Kenya. So why do all the technologists focus on the developing world? Several reasons. Number one, they realize there's new huge market share, untapped market share in Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and fewer and fewer places around the world, quite honestly. South America, there's untapped markets out there. And I know that from our American-centric, Anglo-centric, Western-centric world, we often don't think that there's these other markets. South America actually has thriving internet markets that you and I've never heard of, but Google has entire branches that is servicing Latin culture, Latin markets. But in Africa, we still have a large untapped market. And by untapped market, we mean this. If you can bring the developing world, what was previously known as the third world, if you can bring the developing world and underdeveloped world online, you do several things. Number one, you decrease human suffering because they can get answers to the questions they have on the internet. How do I build a windmill out of a basketball? Have you seen this video before? A kid built a windmill that generated electricity for students in his village, all on YouTube videos. And so we brought electricity, which means the students could work in the fields during the day and can do their homework at night. Otherwise, you lose. If someone wants to go to school, they have to send one kid to school. We saw this in Haiti. You can only send one of your children to school because if you have 3 or 4 or 5 children, you need all of them to work the fields to feed the family in order to send one of them to school. But if you can bring electricity to the homes, even just a single little light, then they can do their homework at night and actually go to school during the day, or have more of those students actually do both, work the fields and do their homework at night. You can have homeschool, night school. That becomes a possibility when you have the internet in third world countries. So places like Google, places like Facebook, they are constantly working on ways to bring internet. And if you can get people on the internet and get them reduce human suffering, increase education, decrease disease, decrease childbirth, it's actually a planet-saving move while also building their market share. So it's a win-win. This is the way technologists think. So how they've done this is they've actually now are shooting laser lights. They're shooting laser lights up to 20 kilometers and giving internet speeds and download speeds that you would expect from fiber optic cable. This is insane. Basically, they're setting up wireless networks in Kenya using these light beams. It's like fiber without the cables. And I wanted to point this out. You're like, well, that kind of sounds like it should be completely obviously easy. Check this out. You imagine, there's a big question when we were in the Dominican Republic. Wait a minute. How does internet get to the Dominican Republic? So me and Marissa, while we were living in the Dominican Republic, we researched this and we said, how does internet get to the Dominican Republic? And do they zap it down with satellite? Well, satellite is a thing, and that's basically like coming through a satellite cell phone and then getting distributed, and it's kind of slower speeds. At that time, the only concept was they actually drop a cable. And it's like fiber optic wrapped into more fiber optic, and literally as a trunk line runs from the mainland of wherever, America in this case, and actually goes over the sea floor, disrupting ecosystems, and then comes back up the shore and an actual place right up into the Dominican Republic. That's how these islands in remote areas get Wi-Fi. In this case, Google has now pioneered a way to take these panels, and you can see it in the thumbnail. They take these awesome panels, stick them on top of the towers, on top of buildings, and zap high volumes of light between these, and you're getting normal internet speeds. That means you could go across bodies of water without having to dig up the soil. That means you could actually zap this through space. Good morning, Jessica. I hope you're doing fantastic this morning. You can actually zap Wi-Fi through space this way. If you can create a line of sight or bounce the signal through mirrors, you can actually get Wi-Fi straight. You could actually get searchable internet straight to the moon or Mars when we put colonies there. This is a powerful, powerful breakthrough. But what I love about this is that it alleviates human suffering. It alleviates human suffering. Okay, in other news too, Emily Harrington. Do you know this name? You should. Emily Harrington. Yes, it is amazing. And your day is amazing. And you're amazing, Jessica. Emily Harrington, age 34, is the first woman to free climb El Capitan's Golden Gate route in just one day. This is crazy. This is not like, this shouldn't start with like first woman. This is a crazy feat. So this woman climbed the Golden Gate route. There are other routes up the El Capitan mountain, and I think it's in Yosemite. It's about 3,000 feet high. Now, when I read this, I had to check myself. Marissa took me on a 3,000-foot hike that took me 4 hours up and back. And I was tired. I was done. My face was slouched. I was like, oh my God, this is not my definition of fun. Do you know how long it took Miss Emily Harrington to climb El Capitan? I'll give you 10 seconds to guess. Bing! 21 hours, 13 minutes, and 51 seconds. She free climbed, which means she did not use equipment. This is what I would call a straight up baller. Marissa says she is such a head ass. And I think at 5 in the morning, Marissa meant to say badass. She is such a head ass, baby. Marissa's hilarious. She is such a badass. She climbed this thing. Here, let me give you this link. She climbed this entire thing in 21 hours. Marissa said 8 hours. What was 8 hours, babe? 8 hours. I don't know what Marissa's talking about. It basically took us this time to hike our hike, and I had equipment, I had food, I was walking. This gal with chalk basically climbed straight up a cliff face and is diligent to do this over a 21-hour period. At least it says in the article. Maybe Marissa's correcting me, and it should have been 8 hours that she climbed, but no. It was 21 hours, 13 minutes, and 51 seconds. Emily Harrington, know that name. Hey, love, remind me. I want to interview this gal. I should interview this gal on what this takes. Badass. Yes, Marissa says hashtag badass, not headass. So that's other piece of other news. A phenomenal human being, regardless of gender, climbed up El Capitan on the Golden Gate route in one day, less than 1 day. Took her 21 hours as a 34-year-old, a straight badass. I know what Marissa's thinking is like, that's it. I'm 31. I'm feeling it creep up on me. What badassery can I get into this year? And do her own thing. I know she is. And you need to follow Marissa at Spark Explore today because she's doing more questing and a low-key scouting trip for herself today to take you lovely people on awesome hikes in the woods. So follow Marissa at Spark Explore. And in our third piece of other news, if you haven't guessed it yet, we're moving the show to State of the Spark. And at some unnamed date, I'm going to flip the switch and all of our conversation will only be happening there. You'll wake up on a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday and go, where's the show? And I don't see it on Grant's feed. And you're going to think, duh, I should have gone over to State of the Spark, facebook.com/State of the Spark. And there I should have actually followed, and I should actually follow that page because that's where Grant will be doing the show. It will happen suddenly, and you won't know what to do with yourself, and you'll think I would have abandoned you. And no, you would have abandoned yourself. Think about that. Here we go. I want to talk about this lesson, and then I want to let you get to your lovely day. And if I am guilty of anything, it's TMI, right? It's too much information. It's too much input. It's too much feedback. I want to keep this as concise as possible, but I want to make sure that you understand the power of this. So if there's anything, so most of you guys at this point know me as Mr. State of the Spark, igniting lives of explosive significance. And what does that mean? And we want to help people live their fullest a most robust, blissful life where they are feeling fulfilled, they have clarity of vision, they are actually creating successes and wins in their own life, they actually are giving back and feeling fulfilled with the significance that the impact they're making in the world, and then they sleep well at night. They radiate purpose, they spend time reflecting on the lessons they've learned, and they let that level themselves up for a renewed sense of spring. And you get into these cycles of living, which is kind of like why we have the cycles of living and the enso there. It speaks to everything that is old becomes new again and entering a new season of sparked living. That's what life is. And in the process, you have in the TLE, right, the total life experience. In that process, these people also share fitness and health, healthy, happy relationships, work they enjoy, and spirituality, a deep sense of belonging and purpose. That is what we're trying to do with State of the Spark. People know me for that. But when people call and go, hey, could you do a speaking event? More often than not, I talk about communication. I talk about communication and connection and connecting with other people. So for today's thing, I grew really concerned, and I have been growing concerned throughout COVID. And as I've been picking up the phone, talking to people, as I've been encountering my own employees and encountering my own friends, I have noticed a serious de-evolution, a serious entropy of the ability to communicate. I got one of the best compliments in the world yesterday from a good friend of mine. And he said, Grant, I'd love just to get on the stage with you. And I said, why? He said, you have the ability real time to connect your words to the thoughts you're thinking. And it's rapid and it's noticeable. And it's not just brain vomit. It used to just be brain vomit. But the ability to actually sequence the thought you're thinking and to put it in language, I want to hear more about that. And that request from him got my radar up and running yesterday and thinking more and more about this entropy I'm seeing, people's inability to connect words and thoughts and their face to things going on. So this morning, very quickly, I want to share the 4 primary keys. I could speak about communication. I could communicate about communication for literally 24 hours. I could take on Emily Harrington, and while she was climbing El Cappy's hand, someone should just challenge me and go, can Grant talk about communication and skills and connection without repeating himself over a 21-hour period? I should go for the world record for the longest speaking event without stopping and repeating myself on a given topic. Let's set that up. And let's just download into people, start a business. We'll have to pick a good topic. So will you talk about me as much? Will you write a letter to NPR and tell them to do a special on me if I do that? Some other day. Here we go. These are the 4 principles that if you threw everything else away about communication and if you were thrown on an island and you only had one tool, what would you want? Similar story. If you were thrown into a communication environment and you only had these 4 principles, I would recommend you wield these like weapons, my friends, like weapons. This is what they are. Number 1, eye contact, but only 75% eye contact. 75% eye contact is it. I'm writing it down. Here's why. How do you disarm? How do you anger a bear? We are taught, as me and Marissa know, that in all the hiking we've done, if you do encounter a bear, avoid eye contact, right? Make yourself big or make a loud noise. But if it starts to escalate, one thing you really know is you do not make 100% eye contact. You ever been talking to someone or on a date and they just do this? How are you doing today? Oh, yeah, that's great. I love to hear where you're from. What city are you from? That's a little too much. That's creepy, man. People think that they're taught young make eye contact. And you do need eye contact because most people don't stare. When someone stares, you can tell that they were taught young to make eye contact, but now that's all they do. And it's like an immature version of eye contact. So are we communicating? I hope we are. Their eyeballs start to get dry. They start to not blink. You know that's an immature expression of the lesson, make eye contact. And then the opposite is also true, right? People are making like they're doing this. Now, this show is tough because I've got like my notes here. So my eyes go from here to here. I've got my video, making sure I don't have a booger right here. and then I've got my screen and my show over here. So I have to glance to make sure your comments. So I have a comment feed here and I've got a comment feed here and I want to make sure I get to your comments. So my eyes do dart. But as often as possible, I try to come back here to make sure I'm talking to you, lovely people, but that I'm not doing this over your coffee for breakfast, you know? So my rule of thumb is this. Make 75% eye contact. I honestly think that 100% is bare conversational. Oh, Jessica, why is that mind-boggling? She's so funny. Jessica says the concept of 75% eye contact is mind-boggling. I love it. I'm going to actually share that because it just makes me laugh. But I want to know, Jessica, in the comments, why you think that is mind-boggling. Less than 60%, it sends another message. It sends the message that you're hiding something. So if you're engaged in a conversation and someone's talking to you and it looks like I'm being shady, right? And so here, hang on, let me go back to my little doohickey. There we go. Yeah, so 75% of eye contact to me is about the sweet spot of where we can actually have a healthy conversation. Jessica says it's just making me really question my levels of eye contact in the past. And I do this. Like, I know that in meetings where there's confrontation, I reduce my eye contact. The main reason is I want to think my own thoughts. And we are so used to people penetrating our thoughts and giving in. And we're used to the fact that eye contact, when we make eye contact, we like people more. Literally, in the example that I was talking about earlier as neurons, if we are neurons and communication is the synaptic connection by which we relay ideas, making eye contact is the thing that puts those tendrils together. We suddenly become more likable. They suddenly become more likable. And by likable, I don't mean they could be a narnar head. They could be someone that we don't like in general. But when we make eye contact, empathy begins. Connection begins. Sympathy begins. And for far too many people in our circles, we're surrounded by people we actually don't want to be connected to. There's too many people. Marissa says there's just too darn many people on the planet. Rob says eye contact, enough to establish connection, but don't lock for too long. It can get awkward. Exactly. And Rob knows. Hey, Rob, by the way, I do want to follow up with you. And if you have time, I'm completely available before lunch. Let me know if that's possible for you, brother. I did mean to get back to you, but I've got you on the show. So eye contact you, Rob. Let's connect if you're available, please. So the eye contact is what makes the synaptic connections of humans finally connect. And even if we don't like someone, it develops rapport and empathy. That is our natural state. You cannot like someone and have rapport and empathy. So we develop the habit of avoiding eye contact because we don't want this connection. The higher volume of messages we get, the more we get used to going, oh, I just can't connect. And then when we see people on the street, this is why when you walk through New York City, you can walk through New York City and not make eye contact with anyone. I think Rob and I would be on par with this. I've done this, Rob. And when I think about it, I literally think that you might do this. And I think you do. I know Rob does this with his lovely daughter. He and his daughter collect smiles. They go through and they try to make eye contact and collect a smile. He and Kylie have been doing this for as long as I've known Rob. And it is carried with her into her adulthood. She's a wonderful woman who does this. When I walk through places like New York City and Boston, I try to collect eye contacts. I try to get people they're walking and they brush up against me. I'm trying to get them to look up and go, huh? Connection. It starts with eye contact. Too long, it gets awkward. Too short, it sends the message that you're trying to avoid them. And the truth is, we are trying to avoid them. Hey, Jessica, if you don't know Rob Boudreau, Jessica says, collect smiles. I love it. Jessica, if you and Rob don't know each other, you really should. Rob, I think you'd get a kick out of the who that is Jessica Ojeda. So let me move on from 75% eye contact. As I said, I could talk for a long time about what's going on in society today as it comes to eye contact. I think it's supremely important, but I think we do need to keep ourselves at the 75% line, because even if you're across the table from someone you don't like, even if you are having a breakup conversation, and I don't just mean from relationships, I mean from jobs, I mean from friendships, you should be free to break up with friends and it not be crazy. Like, you shouldn't have to have a friend for life. We want friends for life, but we want quality friends for life. How do you do that? You have to face the music, and facing the music means engaging their eyes. I think when we see other people's eyes, we are convicted with who we are. Oh, someone take that to the bank. I think when we connect with other people's eyes, we suddenly know that someone else sees us. And I think we've been hiding for way too long from COVID. I think we've been hiding for way too long from the pace of this society. I think we've been hiding from way too long from our authentic selves. Please start with yourself in the mirror, then your loved ones, your closest circles, and practice being okay with connecting and then disconnecting when you need to. That's my spiel on 75% eye contact. Take that to the bank. Here's my second principle of communication. I'm putting it in the comments right now. Boom. Please match your face to your intent. I'm going to switch this up so this actually becomes an acronym. I'm going to actually codify this as a framework of communication. Right now, forgive me in its rudimentary state, but please match your face to your intent. I've noticed that people do one of two things or one of several things. If people have been hurt in the past, they often try to hide their intent by a neutral tone. If people have reacted to them poorly in the past, instead of correcting that and becoming more normal in their facial expressions, they actually go neutral and they just try to communicate this. I hope you're really enjoying this communication. I hope you really understand 75% eye contact and match your face to your intent. Don't you understand that I'm really trying to inspire you? That doesn't play, my friends. That's weird. That's murdery, right? That's serial killery. Rob Boudreaux says we're hiding in social media. Eye contact and good coffee in real life conversations matter so much. They matter so much. This is from Rob. In real life conversations matter so much. And they matter because we get better. You know, the people that have people that are taken wrong young, and then they go neutral, they haven't learned the right lesson. You can learn. It's not just about learning lessons from life's experiences. It's about learning the right lesson. And if we learn the lesson to go neutral, our physiology determines our psychology, not the other way around. Tony Robbins is famous for saying, I could teach you to make yourself depressed right now where you're at. I want you to quit looking at my face. I want you to slump. I want you to frown. I want you to let your eyes to droop, and I want you to look down, and I want you to sigh. You can already feel depression coming on over you when you do that. Physiology determined my psychology, and if I kept doing that, I'm telling you, by lunch, I would be depressed. So I throw my shoulders back. I raise my voice. I smile at myself. I let my eyebrows go nuts. My physiology determines my psychology. But we're not just talking about positive personal development. We're talking about communication. When you go neutral, you're trying to make sure people don't mistake your words. So you're just trying to deliver the words. A lot of temperaments do this. And they might not do it as dramatically as I am portraying, but they tone it down to the point where they actually start numbing and they try to only deliver the words of their communications, and they're hoping that you don't mistake them, just deliver the words. But how much of communication is body language? It's over 85% in studies from Harvard. Body language, you could go, and you know what I'm saying. I didn't have to say anything, and you knew that I liked you and that I love you. You need to quit worrying about the words. That'll come. You need to make sure that your face matches your intent. In fact, there's a psychological term that I've been researching lately. I've been reading up on it, and I just watched myself delayed, and I saw myself do the heart thing, and it's hilarious. There's a research, and there's actually a disorder for when people's facial expressions don't match their emotion or their intent. And you should be concerned about these people because these people are on basically on a path. If they're friends of yours who, when they're happy, they kind of get monotone, or if they're really upset, they mask it by being overly silly, like inside they're raging, but they smile and they laugh because they think they're obligated to, and they think they're masking their anger. We know this because we love them and we make eye contact. We know this. You need to reach out to these people. because there's an actual disorder that is, it's almost a certainty that given enough time of them operating that way, it's called one of the terms, one of them, it's not the whole thing, but one of them is called schizoid dysmorphia or something like this. And I'll find the right term and I'll post that. I did it in a previous show. And it's basically a disorder that causes them to not live their fullest life. So I'm not just talking about monotone, though. I'm also talking about this dysmorphia that when you're raging inside, you don't want people to know that you're angry. That's a good citizen thing to do, you think. So you start avoiding eye contact and then laughing or smiling or just nodding and going neutral in a different way. You've got to look out for this. You're not helping yourself and you're not helping anyone. And what's worse, as I was pointing out about the fact that physiology determines psychology, not the other way around, they're also exacerbating, they're making worse the misfired of their wiring in their brain. So if they're going neutral and they continue that and communicating, it's a downward spiral. They started that because someone said something or took them wrong or they felt awkward or they were embarrassed. So they started to shrink from the world and they got more and more neutral. They're doing it to themselves now. We need to, the Spark citizens, help them out of that. So number one, 75% eye contact. Number two, please match your face to your intent. And I did want to point this out, just a few quick notes I have here. So my eyes are going to my notes. Number one, you may have good news and want to celebrate, then smile. You may have good news, but carry concern. Smile and let it change to curiosity. Like, hey, it's your birthday, but I'm concerned you're getting old. That's a funny example. But my face matched my intent. You know, hey, we got this letter in the mail. It looks really good, but I'm concerned that someone's sending us money and shouldn't be. You let it lead with a smile and change. And this is the dynamics of facial expression. Make sure your face matches your intent. And here's one. When delivering tough news, what I do, this is an actual example from me. When I deliver tough news, I begin with a serious face. Hey, we've got to talk. I then move to a sideways grin. Hey, I'm sorry. I know this is tough. So I started with a serious face. Hey, we got to talk. Hey, I know this has been tough to hear. I do a sideways grin, and then I try to laugh. But we're going to get through this. What am I messaging besides the words? Besides the words, I'm messaging this is serious, but I'm bridging with you, and it's going to be all right. This is serious, but I'm bridging with you. It's going to be all right. My face communicated all of that. And that was a complex sequence of facial expressions. You don't have to go that nuts. But just please be sure that you're not doing the world a disservice by mix matching your face with your intent. And not the words, the intent. The face matches the intent, not necessarily the words. Okay, number three. Please match your voice to your intent. Now, not everyone has the vocal inflection or dynamics that I have. I'm very aware of it. I have been paid to train corporations how to modulate voice. But let me give you just a few quick examples. If your message is happy, your inflection should start low and elevate. Are you happy? Are you happy? If you hear this, you are actually sending the entire human species unconsciously, regardless of language, regardless of culture. The entire human species is programmed through millennia of evolution to understand that when I whistle like this, it's fun or exciting. When I whistle like this, it's a warning. Warning. Hey, man. Hey, hey, it's called a declining tone. Hey, you start here and it falls off the cliff. Hey, people know bad news is coming. And if you're trying to communicate anger or displeasure, hey, that's not right. You do this with your kids. Hey, staccato is anger. Hey, disappointment is dropping tones. Jessica says, I love the concept of transitions in the facial tone expression through the conversation. I can improve in this area. Yeah, transitioning people. And I do this with my hands too, but more often than not, I'm really trying to do it with my vocal inflection and my face, and then my hands just kind of follow along, right? But knowing that your tone and that your inflection also say intent. This goes back to the monotone person when their face went deadpan and they want you to know how happy they are. Their tone also follows. So what happened is they did it with their physiology. So I don't want to be this. They're thinking in their head, I don't want to be mistaken. So I'm going to be taken seriously. So I'm just going to go neutral with my face. And remember, I told you that physiology determines psychology. So then psychologically, they just went monotone. Okay, I just want to really, I'm really busted up here and I really want to communicate to them how much I love them, but they keep mistaking what I'm saying. So let me just deadpan my body and my face. And now I'm just going to communicate how much I love them. Hey, honey, I love you. The tone itself is now affected. So the leading action was the physiology. The following action was the psychology. And the third step then came out, their tone came monotone. Well, they mistook what I said. And then the wife is like, are you okay? And they're like, oh, they always mistake what I mean. And this is going on in their head. I tried to communicate. They mistake what I mean. But now they've created that story loop. You are responsible in every communication to have 75% eye contact, match your face with the intent, match your vocalization, your intonation with the intent. Leitra Davis says, great lessons on body language and vocal cues. Thank you, Leitra. You're the pro, sister. So last but not least, this is my last rule of thumb, and you have to hear this. My last rule of thumb is this, and I'm going to post it right here. Read this. Monotone is always displeasure of some kind. I know my examples I gave were displeasure. I don't want you to think that monotone is the only form of communicating displeasure. You can wield displeasure, right? You sometimes as overly opulent people, we need to have tough conversations with employees, tough conversations with our kids. We need to do them a service to integrate our face and our tone with our intent. Hey, I'm not happy with you. How often have you seen a parent go, shame on you, and smirk because the kid still looks silly? And then we laugh. And the kid's getting mixed signals, man, because they're watching the face. They don't know the words yet. They're just watching the face. Monotone isn't the only way to wield displeasure, but monotone is the sloppy, unintentional, unnuanced way to relay some form of displeasure, but it's monotone, so I have no clues. Sometimes I need to know you're upset with me. And I need to know that you still accept me. Hey, I love you, but I'm upset with you. I need a moment. They need to know that you love them, that you're upset. That's not monotone, but you heard my voice. Hey, look at my eyebrows. It sounded like you're being monotone. I'm being monotone relative to Grant, but watch my eyebrows and listen to my tone. Hey, I'm upset with you. I love you, but I need a moment. There's urgency and awareness in my eyeballs. You can see the whites of my eyes. The whites of your eyes actually relay fear, concern, or threat. And so when I do that, I'm relaying, hey, sometimes I need to wield displeasure. But it can't come across monotone because then the recipient doesn't know how to respond. When I do this, the recipient knows, just look at my hand gesture. Give me some space. Give me a moment. They know that I'm feeling threatened. But monotone doesn't help anyone. I'm upset. I need a minute. You're basically disarming the rest of the mechanism, the rest of the human species mechanism from supporting you. So you're allowed to cry. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to show fear. You're allowed to show anger. You can still mix in there love and I still accept you, but I need a moment to get over this, man. Or grief. But when you go monotone, you are deadening yourself like the bleaching of a coral reef. Hear me on that. You are deadening yourself like the bleaching of a coral reef when you do this. You're not letting anyone help. You're not letting anyone in. And I know why. You probably do it because you've been hurt in the past. I feel you. Everyone's been hurt. Why are you learning the lesson of bleaching yourself? Why are you learning the lesson of going stoic and stone cold and distant? Because your hurt's that deep. I get it. I feel that too. I go there sometimes. But there's no healing. It's the wrong lesson to learn. And you're not helping the world messaging. So here they are, 75% eye contact. Go back and watch these if you just now jumped in. Number 2, match your face to your intent. And you can use facial expressions to transition. Number 3, match your voice to your intent. Wield these to help others, but also help your own psychology. And number 4, monotone is always displeasure. And it doesn't help. Rob Boudreau says monotone establishes no healthy boundaries for yourself. And Rob raises a fantastic point. Rob, this is a great quote. I'm going to put it on the screen here, my brother. Hang on. Boop. Oh, it's further. Which comment? There it is. Boom. Rob says monotone establishes no healthy boundaries for yourself. The point that I'd like to point out here for Rob is this, that Rob, I want to call out some genius here that Rob is sharing. Sometimes you need to wield facial expressions and intonation to not relay fierce irritation as much as boundaries. Hey, that's not cool. You don't need to rage at people per se. You don't need to be broken and hearted and crumble. You need to wield your facial expressions in order to set boundaries. Rob, with his kids, he's had adult kids live with him. I'm sure he's had to use facial expressions. I'm sure he's had to use intonation to relay boundaries to grown kids. Hey, this is a small house. We're all living in here. Let's, that's cool. This is not cool. But if he would have gone stoic, no. They don't know what's going on or how to respond. So yes, there's some genius to what Rob was saying, that you definitely need to make sure that you're wielding these things to create boundaries, but also create wins, but more than anything, create connection. Leecher Davis says, like bleaching a coral reef. That was powerful. Thank you, Leecher. I'm glad you got something out of this. Listen, guys, remember this. If you need help with your small business, your dream, visit us, join us. Let's prime the pump of the conversation over at the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. Bring up issues. If there's something you learned today that you want me to unpack, go ask there. We're going to unpack and ask and answer those questions there, because you guys are my awesome Spark citizens, and it tells me what you need to hear more of. And we'd love to fulfill those needs. If you need help with hiking, Spark Explore, bookkeeping, Spark bookkeeping, website, Spark sites or training, Spark training, you can get all of that just by visiting the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group or the Facebook State of the Spark group. But more than any of this, I want you to remember the mission today. Remember, and watch my face and hear my tone. It's about igniting lives of explosive significance, starting with your own. I love